This is Paul. This is the Rent Supply Podcast. This is just an alarm. That's what that was. So I was watching Lionel Nation. Lionel's awesome. He's got great insight on stuff. He's funny. He's spunky. I don't know. He's one of the few people that I think spunky applies. And he's I don't mean in a kid-like way. He's a middle-aged type gentleman, but he's fun to watch. And but he had a question, that he put out to the conspiracy theorists who are propagating the idea that the whole thing in Syria and all this is part of the Trump genius, the Trump possibly even mad genius, crazy wild genius, big genius, like the GOAT, whatever the hell GOAT means. It's come out over the last year, I don't know. But anyway, so it didn't take me but a minute for my conspiracy theory brain to immediately jump to, so why would Putin and Bashar al-Assad and Theresa May and Macron and all the hubbity-bubbities go along with a plan that essentially makes Trump look good? I don't think that that's ever actually been the plan. I think that the man intentionally looks good when he wants to look good and intentionally looks bad when he's trying to inflame the ire of the left and even sometimes the moderate and all the way to the right. And, he just pisses people off sometimes. And I think that he does, I would believe wholly that he does that much of the time on purpose, because he's been able to, I think that he was able to lure the Democrats into pushing so hard for the Russian investigation that they're the ones who inevitably outed the dossier information and everything. And it was because of the FISA court issue and the general or whatever admiral who talked to Trump and everything. I mean, he knew all along it wouldn't take a lot. I mean, you're trying to get them to launch a probe into Russian interference, knowing full ass well that the other side interfered and colluded, whatever. But so that's fine. How do you get everyone else to go along with it? So here's the answer to that question, if it pops up in anyone else's head besides Mr. Lionel at Lionel Nation, Mr. L. So, if it all goes back to the central bankers, it all goes back to the big money families or houses or, whatever conspiracy theory you want to buy into. Like I said, this is a purely an answer from the conspiratorium right here. Either way, you're going to end up with an elite group of people, say the Illuminati. If we're making up a word that doesn't exist in the popular culture today, we're just going to say Illuminati. I mean, because that's fresh, new, never been said before. But, so let's say that is the target group here. So, who else has used that term is Vladimir Putin. He's the only leader, well, I think he was the first leader that I ever saw on a large stage directly call out the Illuminati on multiple occasions and be dead ass serious about it when he did it. That's happened a few times since. I can't remember who did it. Was it, what was his name? Man, I don't know. Have to come back to that one because, whatever. But let's say that the elected heads of state of all these countries, and regardless of what you believe about Vladimir Putin, and I won't push one agenda or another here, but I think that he's so demonized without any question to whether or not that, all of it is justified, and I think a lot of that is open to debate. Yes, is he ex-KGB? He absolutely is. And I think that the poisoning of the pardoned Russian defector and his daughter not having killed them by Vladimir Putin, by the Red Menace, the man who, well, I mean, let's just say it, he's Frankenstein made or something if you listen to the warmongers, but he's directly called out this Illuminati group. He's directly called out the financial elite. So okay, let's say that Theresa May, who what side does Theresa May lean to? Wait, was it the right or the left? Well, I'm thinking pretty much she's pretty damn clear to the right. I mean, there's no bullshit here. This woman, she's Brexit, for God's sake. Let's be serious about it. Okay, so Macron himself, I don't really even know what to say there. I mean, he's definitely not someone who you would think to align too much with Donald Trump, but let's say that it goes all the way to the highest level, and this is based upon the financial elite, the Rothschild family, or whatever you want to believe. I mean, let's just call them the Smiths so that I don't get murderized. So it's the Smith family, and they've got all this money. They have so much money that they've lent to all of the largest nations on the planet at one time or another, have lent to the Vatican. So, in fact, look at the World War I, World War II stuff. So, regardless, the Smith family and their cronies, we're just not going to even say. Let's just say that a bunch of people who, through virtue of who their mommy and daddy are, have had a level of control that is incomparable on this planet. Now, if you don't believe in anything, you don't believe in any conspiracy theories, that's fine. I believe in some of them. I believe in others. This one, I think, is just fun about the Smith family because I remember a book coming out in the 1980s. I don't actually remember the book, but it came out in the 80s. I read it, and I kind of found out the story about it in the 90s, that it was a book on this Smith family, or a family like that, where they allowed him to come in and write this book, or this article, or whatever the hell it was. I'm pretty sure it was a book. But, was essentially told by this family that, you can see everything, but, if you mention the name or whatever, you out, specifics that we don't allow you to. I mean, you will disappear, and whether that means professionally or, I mean, he was fairly clear about what he believed that meant. And it was this unbelievable, it was this family basically outing just how far their reach is and just how powerful they are. Not exactly, giving direct statements about what they had for funds, but I mean, kind of, treating heads of states like the children in the room, I think ends up being a bad idea if that's at all true, or essentially believing that you, because of the virtue of your wealth, deserve to have singly even anywhere near the equivalent say in what happens geopolitically, globally, or I think that here's where you really end up in a universally acceptable argument here with these people in question is, we run nations. We speak for millions of people. Now this is, the Putin, Macron, May, even Assad point of view, is that, presumably at some point, these people have to say, well, I make decisions for my nation based upon what I believe to be the best in the long run for them. I think that if you have leaders that do not do them, then do not do that. If they're not putting the good of the nation ahead of the good of a few elite, already pampered, spoiled people since birth. And I'm not talking about the Smith family specifically, but I am talking about the financial elite throughout the world, who have, many of which have generational wealth that has afforded them a lifestyle that most other people couldn't dream of in their wildest dreams since birth. And then afforded them through that very nature, that very virtue of who, from which family tree they spring, then have this power. And I think that it would be very difficult if you're Donald Trump, or if you're Vladimir Putin, or Theresa May, or, Mr. Macron himself, who I think is kind of the outlier here politically. But I do think that he's, even to him, I should say kind of, I mean, he is seen as being on the opposing side, but at some point it must come into his mind that, wait a minute, I'm putting my country first, not myself. And that is millions of people, and that has a history of democracy. I mean, the Magna Carta, it has a history, full of some not altogether advisable mistakes, much like the United States, much like Russia, or, the UK. But what, generally speaking, can be accepted with few exceptions, is that the history of these great nations, all of them, you say what you want about any of them, they are great nations in the aspect of duration and, strength as a nation to remain intact through, hundreds of years of turmoil. Is that their leaders were, for the most part, or the leaders that they're identifying with, did their best in their viewpoint for the nation, for the people as a whole. Because the nation is the people. It's